All right, everyone, welcome. It is time for another episode of the Civic Second. As you know, we got to turn up. It's Sunday, y'all. Jeff Campbell, Marwan Cameron, this is what we do. We cover city council meetings, react, and all things, I guess government policy, things like that. And then we discuss them here with you on Sunday morning, 10 a.m. So let me go ahead and bring on my distinguished co-host there.
Hello.
Jeff, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. I overslept a little bit today, but yeah, I'm good.
No worries, but you're present and accounted for.
That's right.
All right. Well, you know what we do. This is our time that we talk about what happened in the city council meeting. I think it was a pretty, I won't say uneventful. Everything that happens in city council is pretty important, and then we just kind of recap and give our thoughts and opinions on that, and kind of go forward.
Yeah, I think well, things were slow. What's August? We're in this August slow period. I think just generally things slow down for everybody in August, and that's true of the city council too, I think.
Mhm.
Um, so, but things will pick up big in September, and um, it's time to talk budgets, as they are talking budgets now. So that's a huge issue that I'm paying attention to. But
Which is last week. Thank you there, Mr. Dent. Good morning to you. Glad that we are looking and sounding good. And we went over the budget last week. I will put that in the chat if you didn't see last week's show, where Jeff really goes in. They say churches in session, where Jeff really goes into the budget and then pulls it apart and really kind of explains to us, man, what is this? What are we looking at here? So definitely super appreciative for that. Uh, so we're gonna have a discussion a little bit later on But Jeff, I know you're still trying to get up to speed a little bit. Is there a video that you wanted me to show, or you want to just give me your thoughts off the cuff on
Um,
what we're doing?
I was just going to show. I don't know if you can share that link, but that's got that picture of. So we've been discussing it a lot on the BPOvotes.org link. That actually takes you to a Facebook group page, which I can't ever remember the link to. So I've created a shortcut link. um, and if you go to that link, there's been quite a bit of discussion about the budget and its lack of funding for low income projects and such. And Anyway, so I just wanted to share that summary picture, which actually you may have that graphic already.
This one up here in the left-hand corner,
No,
housing is.
no, it's just scroll down with uh oh, sorry, there's been a lot of posts on the page.
No, don't apologize.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's all
It's
good
all
stuff.
important. Yeah, it's
It's
all
all
good
good
stuff
stuff.
here. So let me just mention it and just not scroll past it. Evergreen
Okay.
Rotary Park, 1500 Park Avenue, 6:30 to 8:30 p.m. Overdose Awareness Day. You can call 360-633-9757. This is August 31st. And so this is put on by the Kitsap Public Health District. Definitely an event that you'd want to go to. Uh, First off, free food and live music.
Yeah,
Yeah, they're doing the
yeah.
most. I love
And
it.
the Kids at Food Not Bombs group is putting on is one of the big sponsors too, and they're such a great group. They're in it for all the right reasons, and um,
What are we looking at
in my
here? Just for context.
oh, sorry, that's a woman, an activist that died, I guess, over in Seattle yesterday. Sorry, I
Oh
forgot
wow.
about. But
No, no,
she and
that's
this,
fine. I just want
yeah, yeah,
context on what we're seeing.
yeah, 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 yeah. Sorry, and let's see. I think
So
is it the next?
Dorley Rainey, she passed
Yeah.
away. Was reported today by the Seattle Times that a lifelong Seattle-based activist, Dorley Rainey. Let me go ahead and enlarge this. I mean, someone passed away. Like
Uh,
we got a second to acknowledge, especially since you
yeah,
put it on the slate here.
yeah.
Rainey was described by the Seattle Times as a fixture of the local progressive protest movements for decades: anti-war, pro-housing, racial justice, public transit, anti-drone strikes, anti-big bank. The list of causes Rainey fought for is almost too long and too myriad to catalog. Rainey was also a protester during the infamous 1999 World Trade Organization protest, also known as the Battle of Seattle, in which Seattle PD violently clashed with the protesters and were found liable by the federal jury for the unlawful arrest of 200 protesters. Uh, Yep, Bailey says rest in love. Rainey gained national attention while participating in the 2011 Occupy protest in Seattle because she was photographed after being pepper sprayed by Seattle police. Seattle PI photographer uh, uh, Joshua Trulio captured the below image. Rainey was 84 when she was pepper sprayed. Wow. Rainey described the response after the incident as a wonderful week. I think we have accomplished something that we have been trying to get, uh, and that is attention around economic inequality. You only get real attention when you block a few streets. That enduring persistence, right? That strength that comes from within is what is needed to change the situation. So definitely, let me give her.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Rest in power. Rest in love.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, scroll past this one. Let me see where it was. I was just trying to show that one graphic with the with the equity and reality of the situation. Oh,
I said you get there.
this is the other thing we should talk about. This is from last night, from Friday.
Okay.
Um,
Let me show the first one, and then we'll come back to this for
okay,
sure.
okay,
That's a thing to unpack there.
yeah.
All right.
I guess we were posting a lot. I was posting, or a bunch of us were posting yesterday.
And this is Let's Talk Affordable Housing Bremerton. So if you want
Yes.
to join
Yeah.
this group,
Yeah. Please join the conversation. It's just people really trying to look for solutions to our problems and really speaking out for the homeless um, in Bremerton. And but our main focus was really to push legislative and for policy change. There it is, finally. For policy changes that are, will really help people in Bremerton. And we keep getting pulled off our legislative game a little bit because there's such cruelty going on MLK that it's been taking our focus a lot. But this is a really good group to talk about solutions, to talk about what's going on. So I would, really urge people to to take part in this if they feel. And it's open. It's an open group. It's a public group, so anybody can join. Um, but so yeah, so this is what my budget summary of, um, and I put in a little description, basically saying that if you look at our taxes, they're hugely regressive. They're hugely coming disproportionately from the poor. And if you look on the spending side, as we went through, there's just nothing that evens that out on the spending side that helps the people who are paying more. There's actually things, you've got state of the art bathrooms at golf courses, but not working toilets in downtown. That's to me, that's a huge discrepancy in how the money is being spent by the city.
absolutely, absolutely.
Um,
Uh, like I haven't seen this graphic. Last week we were talking about that, and so I appreciated the
yeah, and
reality, equity, equality, equity, and liberation.
yeah, interesting. The one I was thinking of when I posted this had justice as the last one. So I've been kind of thinking about, so what is the difference between justice and liberation? What are the two statements? What's different about those two statements? And anyways, that's just an aside that I've been kind of thinking about. And that final slide that people have been adding about justice and getting rid of the barriers, that's always, to me, that's really the hard part to figure out. But we can definitely identify ourselves at the left there,
Mhm.
unfortunately.
Yeah, too many people, right?
Yeah.
So what I want to do, because you brought that up, and I think that's good discussion. I'm going to come over here and pop this over here so folks can see. And why don't we have a just a quick discussion about that? Because I think what you're saying is important. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Let me do this. There we go. It's being difficult. So the question was, what is the difference between justice and liberation? So I'm gonna stop sharing. I'm gonna bring it back up so people can see this. And simply put, we're looking at justice here. The term justice means to treat adequately, fairly, or with full appreciation. It is an ideal of fairness, especially with regard to the punishment of wrongdoing. In other words, justice is the judgment involved in the determination of rights and the assignment of rewards and punishments. So that is a synopsis of justice. And I'll put this here in the chat so you guys have it. Billy says lies, 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 and more lies. And then here we have what is liberation? Okay. Liberation theology. Oh no, that's a political movement. Sorry about that. Let me go to the definitions here. The act of liberating, the state of being liberated, a movement seeking equal rights and status for a group. Uh, and so, talk a little bit about this, Jeff. You said you're kind of going back and forth between liberation and justice, right?
Right now, well, I was new to I I'm just really even thinking about it. So you're already going farther than I've been able to go so far. um, so I'm listening.
But see,
um,
but that's one of the cool things. That's one of the reasons why I dig you. You know,
I don't have answers to this question. It's just really a question in my mind.
but you dare to think about something and then put it in a space where people can talk about it. And I know where your heart is. So,
Yeah.
like I said, I appreciate you for that. So now that I got those things in the chat here, let's just kind of go back to it. And if anyone wants to, pop up in the chat and talk about it too, that's awesome. So justice again, simply put, justice means to treat adequately, fairly, and with full appreciation. We know that our conversation right now has been really centered around MLK and those experiencing homelessness down there. So if we're talking about justice, what does that mean to treat that population adequately, fairly, or with full appreciation? Um, and again, even in the ideal of fairness and in the regard of punishment of wrongdoing, right? So then what does that look like? Is it equitable across the board or is it different? And then the liberation, the act of liberating, the state of being, right? A movement seeking equal rights and the status for a group. Now, this is just an example here, but we are you're seeking justice and you're trying to liberate so that folks do have justice at the end of it. Is my interpretation, kind of looking at the things there, right? Uh,
Okay.
what are your thoughts on that? You're shaking your
Yeah,
head.
no, that makes sense. That makes sense to me. So it's kind of like it's the step after justice, maybe. Is that a way of thinking of it? Yeah.
Yeah, well, yeah, liberating, right, would be the action of trying to get folks to that space, and then when they experience that liberation, then they've arrived, right?
Yeah. Oh, I like what
Elise
Elizabeth said. Yeah, sorry.
oh, yeah. She says, "I'm hearing this as justice is about treatment according to the law, and liberation is driven by laws and legislation designed for equity." Any thoughts? Go ahead, Jeff, pick that one up.
I like that one. I think that's an interesting. Like I said, I'm mulling it. This is something I'll be mulling over all week, probably. Justice for and liberation, Howard. Yeah, it's just it hadn't come up in my mind. The, that difference, but
You know what I think is also cool too is it can be scary, folks, if folks are um, mulling over and taking consideration and having to speak an opinion or a thought in a public forum, right? Because you can step in it, you can go pretty deep. So to be vulnerable in this space like that is great. So Jeff, don't be afraid. Wade into the deep doo doo.
yeah, that's my I don't know my research background is I ask a lot of questions and that's how I learn. Although and yeah, so
All right, so
anyways,
yeah, so let me go back up now because I think this we can go back to that image and let's discuss this because you posted this on your page here, and I'm just scrolling back up. I just kind of turned the camera off so you guys don't have to watch and uh, my frantic scrolling trying to find where this was here. Okay, here we go.
you
All
going
right.
back to the tent picture? Or?
Yep.
Okay.
All right, and we'll talk about this. So on August 19th at 7:29, you can see this is MLK. Oops, sorry about that. Let me show everyone here. This is MLK here, right on the street. And in the distance, you see this is the Marvin Williams Center, and you see a tent out here. Okay. Now, what Jeff said, pushing people to the sidewalk for a $500 a plate dinner under a tent that was built in a day, that is just some let them eat cake level bullshit. Okay. Now, there are clearly folks were pretty pissed off here. There are 4 comment shares. And so we're going to actually go through this. I think this is a good exercise here. So, first, just give me your overall thoughts, and then we'll kind of go over some of these things here.
Yeah.
You know what? Let's go over some history.
Okay.
Um, so, to give a little text, 2 months ago, G2 and Resilient Ecosystems, we had our monthly community barbecue event. And so we came, oh, and Bailey's organization, which he has multiple, right? We had this event downtown to feed those that were experiencing homelessness and to, barbecue. So we brought down the grills and turned it up and we had a good time. And while we were there, um, there was someone was arrested before we even got set up, and I'm not sure what the gentleman did. But this hill here that you're seeing, you can see my mouse, right? Think about the weather. It's been, plus 90 degrees for many days. This area used to be full of trees, if I'm not mistaken, right, Jeff? And so
Yeah,
folks would
yeah,
see
yeah.
shade under the trees, and now you just see that there are two trees here, which isn't really producing shade. But folks would
Well,
lay on this grass.
yeah, and last year, just before we had, you see how those trees are trimmed? Um,
Hmm.
those it used to be, really wide branches and lots of shade right there. But literally the day before our emergency 110-degree heat last year, they came through and cut off all the branches and just left them sitting there during the whole heat wave.
People just
But
left them
anyways,
sitting there.
yeah.
Wow.
It was just so that's new, this whole, and why, why, I don't know. It seemed at the time directly aimed at the people on, and also about this picture, I want to explain something too, that I tried not to capture my unhoused neighbors because they don't like to be photographed because they're being arrested. They're being
Mm-hmm.
tormented. They're being hounded. So on either side of those, there were about 50 to 50 people, I guess, probably. I don't know. Maybe you could estimate more than me, but I'm saying somewhere between 30 to 50 people. Um,
Yeah, easily, easily.
okay. Um, and they're on the outsides of that picture. So they're grouped and they're just, and because they're only allowed to be on that little strip of land between the sidewalk and the street. Although they're parking their cars there now. And I think
Well,
that's
hold
allowed
on,
too.
slow down, Jeff.
Yes.
Because
Sorry.
you're giving us the history. So,
Okay. Okay.
um,
Sorry.
for folks to understand, right, and help me understand too, the sidewalk the city owns, correct?
That's the only public property in downtown Bremerton. Yes. That
Right,
somebody's
but
allowed to be.
typically the city owns the sidewalk.
Yes. Sorry.
City
Yes.
owns sidewalks,
Yes.
right? And so they also own the sidewalk and that little thin grassy piece between the sidewalk and the street. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. And so based on that, Bailey says, but we can post people hanging from trees in GTFOH. Um, so what you're saying is the city is telling folks that are experiencing homelessness down here, this is the only place that you can exist is on that sidewalk and the little grass between the sidewalk and the curb.
Correct.
All right. See, I want to give folks context, right?
Yeah.
Because everything
Yeah.
else is private property.
Right.
Okay.
And there, you're right. Right. Yep.
So go ahead and continue. So this is what's been going on for a while here. So what are folks supposed to do?
Right. Um, and I don't know if you want to go back to to give a little background on the event that they were holding there.
No, no, we're not there yet. I
Okay.
just
Okay.
want
Okay.
to give
Okay.
full context of what's happening. This is
Yeah,
MLK.
and the other thing we've been talking about is the parking lot, which is directly across the street there, which is behind the old rest. And a lot of this stems from the closing of the rescue mission. The rescue mission was such a huge resource here for people. Um, I think they were more. I don't know for sure, but it seemed like they were more lenient in who they allowed into the building to take showers and get care and do all that stuff, and they were allowed to stay in the parking lot. But that whole parking lot has been cleared now. Um, and the so now so there used to be, so they moved from the sidewalk, eventually they migrate back to the parking lot, which is always empty. And then the police come in and they bring in all their force and stuff and push everybody back. And so it's a constant thing. It's been going on for years, people trying to exist and the police saying, no, you can't exist here, you have to go. And it's just yeah, Bailey knows. It's been going on for a long time.
Well,
um
let me read that. So Bailey says, let's be honest. It's because it's a colored event, and it bothers everyone on both sides of the fence.
mm, mm.
Well, all right. So, um, so this is a challenge, right? So you have folks, and again for context, Salvation Army is downtown. We have covered this countless times on the conduit. And then you have the rescue mission that is on the side. You've got Monica's bar that is there, and Monica's bar is a very tall building. And so on these hot days, the only place to get sun is to be in the shadow of Monica's bar, or the little shade that's here on the hill. So, uh, you
It's
know,
actually it's actually the shade behind the building that what is it, Pacific Health? I'm always blanking on there. Pacific Health bought that building. That was
right,
the
the
rescue
old
mission.
rescue mission. Yeah, I mean that's how
Yeah,
people know it. So that's
yeah, okay,
um,
yeah, yeah. So, but that's the building that, yeah,
they
and
see shade from.
they seek shade from, but they've been pushed out. And where we cleaned up the garbage, only to have them kick the people out and keep the nice area with garbage cans.
So
Uh,
now what is the deal? What have folks downtown been told on why they can't lay on this hill here?
they've been told that it's private property. So what happened in the last couple of weeks, a lot now I know why they were pushing so hard to keep people off that hill this week, I think. Because, well, the interesting thing is I'm not even sure Marvel Williams Center owns that property. I think it's actually owned by a family out of California. But all week, so they pushed them out of the parking lot. And yeah, they've been migrating up the hill to the shade, and so every day, 3 or 4 times a day, the police come through with loudspeakers and say, "That's private property. Get off the hill." Um, and so they've been really aggressively forcing that this year. The other big key to this, to for people to understand, is that the people who are out on the street, so these 50 people, most of them have been barred from going into the Salvation Army. They're no longer allowed on the property. They will be arrested if they go seek food at one of their food gatherings. They'll be arrested if they try to go use the bathroom. Whatever. If they go anywhere near the Salvation Army, they're going to be arrested. Um, and
And so what
and
are some of those reasons to give context to that?
that, I think there are a lot of reasons. And honestly, to expect a religious organization to take care of these serious problems by themselves is really unreasonable, in my opinion, because they do. There's at least a dozen seriously mentally ill people in the neighborhood that so some of the reasons they get barred from Sally's, mostly for drinking. If they drink or they use drugs or something, they'll be kicked out. But also if they have incontinence, if they're just too much for the staff to take care of, if they're too mentally ill, if they're too disabled. Um, there's a poor guy out there. He's missing both of his legs, and he's not allowed in there. He's in a wheelchair and he's just always in pain, and it's awful. And Black gentleman, I can't remember his name. Shoot, but that's probably he doesn't probably doesn't want me to mention his name.
Mm-mm.
Um, but but anyway, these people literally have nowhere else to go. I mean, there's just nowhere else. I mean, they could go to the park during the day if they want, I guess.
And to be clear, right, Jeff is able to share these stories because Jeff literally lives in in front of where this van is in the brick complex there. And so Jeff will come and lay on the hill with folks that are experiencing homelessness, and he's been part of those been being told with the bullhorn to get off of this property
Yeah,
here, right?
yeah.
Um, so he is speaking from direct experience and not hearsay. So to be clear, he's in the thick of it, and which is why you're hearing his passion in his conversation. Sneak dissing. So all right, so we've got this thing going on here, uh, and so this is a fundraiser event. Okay, uh, summertime and the living is easy, especially if you're hanging out with the mayor who let you put up a tent. If they
That's
wanted
because
to have
they were playing that song, so I had to
uh,
I had to make a reference to the "Living Is Easy" song.
oh, gotcha, gotcha. If they wanted to have an exclusively high-end club for black people, why didn't they just build it in the suburbs? Somewhere like Seymour, just build suburbs somewhere
Yeah,
like
yeah, and to explain my ranting, so when I went out there and I saw my friends There was literally a woman throwing up off camera here because she is forced to eat meat that went bad in the back of her car. I don't know if she was forced to eat it, but she ate anyway. She had this awful rotten meat. Meanwhile, people are eating these, $1,000 plate dinner or whatever it is up there, and um, just the just the cruelty of it. And I was talking to the people on the street, and the mentally ill people are like, well, it's because the numbered rocks became up wrong, and they're just not reading the numbers on the rocks right, and it was confusing, as people, but they realized what was going on. They're like, we're not considered part of the city. We're considered, and just I don't know, just the whole thing. So they had that tent set up, and they had it blocked out so the people eating their nice dinners couldn't see the people on the streets, I suppose. I don't know.
No,
That's
well,
what it looked like from our end.
so that's not what that was, but
Oh,
that was to keep the sun from coming in.
oh, okay.
Uh,
um,
well, and my thought on that is, one, I know that's what it was for, but two,
yeah,
it's like if you're already gonna do it outside, then setting up a shade really wouldn't make a difference at that point. Right? We're already doing what we're gonna do. So,
good.
I
But to
was
be
at
said,
this event. I was at
go
this
ahead.
event, so we understand public announcement uh, is not white. Uh, I was at this event, to be clear. Derek Kilmer and Patty Murray were not at the event.
Uh,
Uh, Tons of security. Uh, yeah, none of that stuff was there.
yeah.
Now, who was in the event? There was, oh, what was her name? Christina Rolfus. I'm sorry, I'm probably not pronouncing her name correctly. But this was a fundraiser, and so I'm going to give a little exposition here, and then we'll go in. So I did not have tickets to this event. One of my friends was not able to go and was given tickets, and I was asked if I wanted to go. So I went to this event, and it's a fundraiser, and I do believe in the things that the Marvin Williams Center is doing. So to be clear, and G2 donated $250 during that fundraising event to the Marvin Williams Center. So there is some really phenomenal programming that is going on at the Marvin Williams Center. They're doing some really powerful things with children. There were a couple single fathers that uh, gave their testimony on the impact that they've had. The Marvin Williams Center has had on their children. And these are small kids, right? Entrepreneurship programs. There's 5 kids that have their own businesses, and so what is very difficult in this situation is you have an organization that is doing some really powerful work, right? That is very impactful, especially to the Black community. Now, the thing is they have a different mission than the mission of those that advocate for people that are experiencing homelessness, right? And Emmanuel and the Marvin Williams Center, they have been downtown for as long as I've been in Bremerton, which is like back in '97. And so in front of this building here, if you look directly front, is the Opal Robinson Teen Center, right? So they've been doing community work down here for decades. I would surmise, and again, it puts them in a very awkward place to be situated here where they're doing the work, but again, their mission isn't that. Uh, I don't work with pets. I care about pets through the Humane Society, but that's not what I do. I don't work with cancer patients. Was it the American Cancer Society? And so this puts organizations in direct conflict. Let me go ahead and close that there. Sorry about that. uh, with what's happening right here in this space, right? Now, what I would hope that can happen out of having these conversations is a space to create a space and start a dialogue, because the fact is that they're neighbors, right? You have folks that are experiencing homelessness. You have the Salvation Army, and then you have the Marvel Williams Center. You got, I think, was that Discount Tire. Diamond Parking owns the empty parking lot right there. KCR is a little bit further down. So we all have to come to the table and have a conversation on how we are going to serve the population. There is a cohort of 30 to what 60, 70 folks that don't have any place to go. And again, to be clear, right? If you have been kicked out of Salvation Army for whatever the reason, right? We can argue whether you think that's valid or not, but whatever that reason is, right? Where are folks supposed to go? And again, this is the resource. So if I am able to stay in the Salvation Army, I have breakfast and then I'm out for the day. Where do I go? I need to have lunch at noon, so I'm not gonna migrate somewhere really far away because I gotta get back for lunch, right? Uh, and then, they'll have, PCHS come down and things like that. So I'm not gonna migrate away from the resource. And then after lunch, dinner's in a few hours. So again, I'm not gonna migrate too far away, and I may not have the capability to do so, right? There's a quite a few wheelchair bound folks or people that have physical disabilities where they're not able to travel great distances, and so this is why homelessness is existing in this space because the organizations that provide that particular resource is there, right? Uh, we need to have conversation about that.
Yeah, and
Uh,
also,
Go ahead.
yeah, also along I mean, um, and it's getting worse, and it's going to get worse because we know there are a lot of people being evicted. So where do they go next? They go into their cars. Where do they go next? They go to the parks. They get run out of the parks. They go to whatever, an RV spot, wherever. They seek community, right? They seek community. Where are other people like me that are down and out gathering so I can be safe, so I can have a community? And so right now, all those communities are being closed, and so people are, where are you going to go? Oh, well, I know people, there's a crowd down at downtown that's always there. And the thing about my neighbors on MLK, it is the most welcoming community I have ever met. Um, you know, everybody, everybody, they welcome people in because they're down and out. You're down and out. Um, um, and so I see it more of people seeking community. Whereas people see derelicts or something or vagrants but to me, I see the power of humans bonding and creating collectives and communities, and if we could just get the forces of the city off their back, or maybe even helping instead of hindering. And the thing, and now I'm going to go off on this, I think, but so there's been a long history with the Marvin Williams Center, like you said, and I can tell you that from the viewpoint from the streets has been, anytime anybody tries to set up to feed people down there, I know the Bailey's experienced this, you've experienced this. The city pretty much sends a pretty hard message that no, we don't want services down here. We don't want things down here for people because they feel like feeding people encourages people to stay there. Which is just an animalistic view to me. Um, so so I've seen numerous times where people have been on the hill and people from Marvin Williams Center have come up and say, "Hey, you got to get off the hill." I've seen, when I was serving food down in front of that youth area that you talked about. Um, Twice now, I've had Marvin Williams Center come and be really forceful and saying, "You need to get out of here. You're ruining our neighborhood." Um,
Is that a quote?
Yeah, yeah, you're
Oh,
attracting these people. You don't see this after you leave, and at which point I always tell them, "No, I live right here."
mhm.
um, and and so there's been that, and then from the police, you get this attitude of, "Well, we're supporting the black community." And that's our most important thing right here is that where it's at, I don't think it has anything to do with supporting the black community. I think it has to do with
Oh, what it
numbering
does
poor
is
people.
that's very scapegoating, right? So it's like,
Yeah,
well, we gotta support the blacks. So, the homeless, that's what it is, right? And we get that a lot, right?
huh?
That that's one of the best tricks in the trick bag of the colonizers to do just that. Is to tell you, well, it's not us, we gotta
It's
protect them over there, so it's their issue. And it's like, well, okay.
but I
And
do think there could be a
honestly, that's just what's happened, right? So it has created this situation where, you know, folks that are experiencing homelessness that live here, look at the Marvin Williams Center as an adversary, right? And so The police helped to build that. You know, I have experienced some of this stuff directly myself. So again, that's why we need to come to the table, and I mean everyone to the table, not just
Especially, yeah, especially the people living there. I think people tend to forget the people that are actually the unhoused, but the unhoused should have the major voice in these discussions, in my opinion. If we're going to solve the problem, talk to the people who you think are the problem. Um,
well, and
so
that's
yeah,
the piece that's missing, right? So what ends
right.
up happening is you've got the mayor that may meet with the Marvin Williams Center or may meet with some city council folks and have conversations, or may meet with the Salvation Army because I think he mentioned he's on the Salvation Army's board. But when are those that are actually experiencing homelessness in that room with those folks when that conversation is happening? All right. And so again, we can sit here and we can complain about it, or we can try to change the scenario. So next month, our September 28th community pancake breakfast, which will be at 2 p.m. At 4040 Wheaton Way, Suite 203. That's what this is going to be for. So we are trying to rally together all of the stakeholders, and I mean all. So everyone will be invited. Salvation Army, those experiencing homelessness, the Marvin Williams Center, Diamond Parking, the police department, city council, which has two have committed to make it to that, the mayor. We are trying to have everyone come to the table, and this isn't a finger pointing session, but what it is a what is the situation? Let's all get into the same room, have a conversation, figure out what all the issues are, and then let's look at solutions, right? And what I mean by that is this: there's been, you have heard us advocate for toilets downtown, right? The urban rest stop, which is a new term, right? Uh, that has a really nice program that can be done, right? And we think that would be very impactful for in that space until the foundation of homeless and poverty management opens up and those services can be provided. The challenge is the county has actually put a dumpster in an area. They've actually put a porta potty in an area, and they've had some negative experience by that. The thing is that it hasn't been articulated out to folks that are looking at it from their viewpoint. And they're like, well, why isn't the county doing this, or why isn't the city doing this? Well, in the county side, they have done this here, or they have done that here, and it didn't work, so it stopped, right? And so, but everyone doesn't get that information. So if everyone's at the table, everyone has all the same information. And when you say, okay, look, we've tried a porta potty here and this didn't work out, then it's like, well, what ways could a porta potty work? What would we have to modify so that we ensure that there is equity, that everyone has access to a bathroom when they need it, right? Everyone. Uh, and that's where the solutions are going to come from. And then we can create a pilot program or do some things and really start to resolve these issues. The truth is, they're not going to go and just all of a sudden say, hey, we're going to spend $50 million and we're going to erect a structure that's going to house all of the unhoused. It's just not going to happen. So, what is it that we can do that is a whole hell of a lot more than what's currently being done?
Interesting. Along those lines, there seems to be, or the feedback I'm getting from city council is that we can't just allocate money for something. We have to have a program, we have to have a plan, and we have to have this and that. Um, I'd like to push back against that a little bit. I mean, I think that experts, there's no reason we couldn't say, okay, we're going to set aside $2 million of our $50 million surplus in the city budget, and let's get the experts together to say what's the best way to spend that $2 million, what's the most effective way, and maybe led by a group like you're going to have in September, um, to say, oh, come up with a plan and how much and how it's going to be sustainable. It's really dependent on the budget, because when you talk to people who are providing the services, they're like, well, what's the budget, right? um, so I kind of would like to push back on that and say, no, we are gonna dedicate a significant amount of money to try something, and uh, and take it from there. Because I think that's a kind of a, I don't know, a shell game sometimes with governments. Like, well, you got to come up with a plan, you got to come up with a budget. Who's supporting this? Who's? And it's always like, no, let's just say let's admit, let's agree there's a problem, and agree that some money needs to be spent to fix that problem, and then figure out how to do that. And but that's my thinking now. Um,
Well, I think, and well, I guess to add to your point, uh, that's what needs to happen, right? Everyone needs to come together and to create a plan, right? And understand that there is not a magic bullet. There is no panacea that is going to end homelessness in this scenario, right? Uh, but there are some things that we can do that are quite impactful. And again, to find out what would be most impactful, you need to talk to the people that are being impacted, right?
yeah,
So the reason why we're talking about bathrooms and dumpsters and things like that is from the voice of folks experiencing homelessness. But they need to be at the table to articulate that out to the policymakers and those that can make things happen. And then we need to find solutions around it, right? Uh, and the needs are even more than that. We're just talking about the two large things. And then how can we make that happen? you know, uh, to move from being unhoused to housed, it can take a lot. Uh,
yeah,
I mean, there's a
and
macro issue here. Just to finish my thought, there's a macro issue where nationwide we're not taking care of our elderly, we're not taking care of our disabled, um, and more folks they're aging into it, right? And folks even younger. I'm not an old person by any stretch of the imagination, but America is physically sick. You know what I'm saying? And we need care.
yeah, in my mind, it's like when you come off of how many generations of war, you've got a lot of trauma you're going to have to deal with in a society. And I think that's kind of where we are. Not to mention our whole history of racism. We just got so much trauma as a country to deal with. And I just think if we're going to have to put as much effort into fighting that trauma or helping with that trauma as we did in the wars. If you can spend billions on wars, you're probably going to have to spend a lot more on trauma, helping people afterwards. I don't know. I think, sorry.
No, no, it's all good. Bailey's typing in the chat, and I love what he's saying here, because both of these things are true simultaneously, right? So first, he says some of the
Mm,
folks down there love to abuse resources. That's facts. That is absolutely 100%. Then he says some of the folks down there really fell on hard times. That's facts, right?
hmm,
Both of these things can be true at the same time. Some of
yeah.
them feel entitled. That's facts, right? Uh, and so, what do we do for those that are, let's say, abusing resources? Because we have CEOs and businesses that abuse resources all the time. I'm thinking about the WalMarts and uh, that don't pay livable wages, and their staff have to apply for SNAP benefits because they can't make their ends meet. But this is a multi-billion-dollar corporation, right? So both of these things are true at the same time. How do we separate who needs services and who don't, right? And I think a lot of times, Bailey and Jeff, what happens is the few that are abusing the system or feel entitled, right? They make it to where policymakers say, well, you know what? You got these folks that are doing this. They're bad actors, and so no, we're not going to do anything down there. And it's like, but there's so many that aren't doing that, and so they're swept up into it. So if I'm having an incontinence issue and I can't, there's nothing that I can do. It's like, well, because of the bad actors, the few bad actors that are there, I'm done, right? And I'm not saying that the bad actors are 1 and 2, right? I mean, if there's 50, maybe out of that 50, there's 15, right? Maybe there's 20. Um,
Yeah.
but what do you do with the other 30, right? I mean, honestly, right?
Yeah. I think, Well, there's multiple populations within the unhoused, right? And to me, the big issue is housing. How are we going to get affordable housing for our population? And that's a huge policy issue. We're going to have to be looking at housing co-ops. We're going to have to look at land trusts. I think we're going to have to really, really think outside the box. And move people away from, oh, well, the market will figure it out. Don't worry, Wall Street will supply us with what we need. No, it won't. Um, uh, and so that's the big bulk. So that's a huge bulk of people who are being thrown out of their homes. They can't afford. I've met people who can't afford their taxes anymore. They've been living in the home for their whole lives, and now they can't afford the taxes, and so now they're being pushed out. So as things rise, um, a lot of people profit off the rise in land values, but a lot of people are going to suffer too. So there's that group, and that's a huge problem. That's the problem that um, I'm really focused on, because we really need to create some real affordable housing, and not in 5 years and not in 10 years. We need affordable housing in a year, like soon. Um, but then you also have the populations that are super needy, like super in need of mental health care, super in need, like elderly, can't even get around without a wheelchair. You've got and people living on Social Security who are making $800 a month. Where are they going to live? Um, so that whole, to me, that's the service group. That's the group that really needs service. Um, then you have, the drug addiction, which is another huge problem, right? Um, but really, if drug treatment was as easy to get as drugs, how much drug abuse would we have, or how much drug addiction we have? I think we'd have a lot less. Um, and that's more of a medical problem. I think that needs a whole different set of solutions for people for the addiction problem. I think I used to, my previous life, I was working in psychopharmacology, and at Harvard, doing uh, helping to analyze the data in brain research. And merely the thought then, and it's been a while, was that it's really from a medical viewpoint, people are seeking something when they take the drugs. They need to find a safer drug. So it's a matter of, from a medical perspective, it's directing them to the most therapeutic treatment, to whatever it is that they're feeling that they need the drugs for. And it's a chemical thing. It's all a brain chemical thing. And so maybe that means when someone's addicted, we need to start supplying them with drugs and make sure that they're not getting bad drugs, and have them have separate drug areas for people to do drugs. I don't know. We need something other than,
I don't know if I agree with that one.
I know. Well, arresting people and prosecuting people for doing drugs is never going to work. It has never worked, and it's never going to work. It just puts people in jail. Um, and what we call a drug is so, alcohol. There are more damages from alcohol. That's the worst drug that we have. Well, I don't know, maybe tobacco may be the worst drug that we have, right? Kills more people. Alcohol kills more people, certainly a lot more people than meth does. And yet, we focus on meth. And how many people, and you only see the meth users who are doing it out in the street. You don't see all the household people, and that's the bulk of meth users are living in homes, right? Affording their drug habits. So I think, anyways, my point is that um, we need to move away from demonizing that population and move more towards a care, and take it out of the drug dealers, running the scene, and let the medical people run the scene for a while instead of the drug dealers. Is for the
But
case.
aren't they the drug dealers?
Who?
The medical people.
Oh yeah. Well, then we get back to, that's, we should have universal health care. And why is medicine a for profit thing? I'll absolutely, admit that. Yeah. Um,
So
but
what
but then I don't know if those are the business interests. Those aren't really the medical doctors. Anyways, I'm not going to solve the drug. I don't have a solution.
well, the
But
thing
yeah, we
is,
did.
I wanna be clear on that, right?
Okay.
Because,
Yeah.
like, especially my community has been harmed, uh,
Yeah.
irreparably through pharmaceuticals and the Tuskegee experiments and things like that, right?
The crack
Yeah,
epidemic was created
that's
by the
right.
CIA, right?
And you had doctors who are lobbied, from these pharmaceutical companies to push drugs, uh, you know, legally, right? And then you see the lawsuits for OxyContin and things like that. Uh, so yeah, or
But I would
other
argue,
opiates.
yeah, I would argue that that was pushed more by the business than the medical than doctors. But
Right,
um,
it was pushed, but again, some
yeah,
doctors, they went for it, right?
yeah,
And then what happened? So, we pay for it.
yeah.
But let's digress from that conversation because that's a
Okay.
whole 'nother
Yeah,
argument.
yeah,
I
and
mean,
it's super important. I would love to have. Yeah, we need to talk about this a lot more. Um, I think, and then fentanyl is just scaring the hell out of me. I mean, I've heard too many people overdosing on fentanyl. So, um, again, I would
let
urge people to have the naloxone if you can get some of that naloxone and have it handy just in case you run into somebody.
So
Uh,
let's pull out of this
okay,
conversation. So what happens is this is a conversation on what do we do with those that are unhoused and giving them
right.
support.
Oh, so
Now,
sir,
hold on. Now
okay,
we're talking about what are the reasons on why they're housed, right? Then it turns into, well, some people are bad actors and other ones are good. Then it goes into a discussion about drugs, right? And so now we're so far away from folks are unhoused because, well, I don't agree with your sentiment on
drugs, right? Yeah,
drugs,
yeah, or,
right?
yeah,
And so now we're not even talking about, hey, these folks need to be housed. We need to do something. We are the most powerful, the richest nation in the history of humanity, and we have a homeless crisis, right? At the crux of it, that's what the issue is, right? And so as we move further down, then our interest and our thoughts start to diverge, and it's no longer about solving the initial problem, right? And there's so many different things. Now, where I wanna go now, Jeff, because
wait,
I
wait, I
wanna
have a
move.
third group. I have a third group.
Oh, no, I wanna diverge from that,
All
right?
right, all right. Because
Because
I wanted to get to the people that Bailey was talking about that are taking advantage of the system. Because I think that but if we can come back to that,
but what I'm saying is what happens is it doesn't become helpful at some point,
right,
right?
right, 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 right. But I
And that
think there are people out there who I don't
but
know, for lack of a better word, are leading a revolution against our consumer society by dropping out of the system and not wanting to take part in any of it, not wanting to take part in a war economy, not wanting to take part in a commodity thing, don't want to live a life where we're just consuming and it's all about consuming. So they say, no, I'm going to drop out of the system. And there are a significant amount of people who have now dropped out of our society because they no longer want to play the game anymore. So there is a significant group. And that seems to be younger people that, and that's just I don't have any data on that, but it seems to me that that's a very younger group of people who are like, screw this work stuff. Why am I going to work my whole life when I see what this old lady sitting in a chair next to me? Why this doesn't make any sense. And so I think there's a real rejection of our society all over the place, and I think that that's the there is an underlying we're not going to play anymore,
all right.
and so
So, Bailey says, "Marwan, let Jeff talk. People explain their true agendas and true intentions come out. It's never about helping all of us. It's about helping themselves. We say unite, but they say only for the whites. I have white folks who are really for the movement. Absolutely, I agree with that. So, then we will stay here. Let's continue to have that conversation. So your third point is restate that.
I think that there are people who don't want to work tomorrow anymore, and is that a bad thing? Do people have? I mean, it gets back to our work ethic, and you can get into like her Hannah rant and all sorts of philosophical questions about, um, if we can produce stuff without workers, do we need workers? I mean, we should obviously keep supporting people, and we should distribute wealth equally, but maybe everybody doesn't have to work. Maybe the goal is to have fewer people work. you know but that's from my political standpoint, and because I think that getting people to buy into the Ponzi scheme of capitalism is um maybe not going to help either.
Hmm. So Here's my thought on it. So, and this
Okay.
is a conversation with Mark, right? Because he talks about the Star Trek economy.
Yeah.
And just to quickly recap, right? If you're a Star Trek fan, uh, basically, what the premise is humanity was on the brink of destruction from World War III, and then they overcame it and got to a point where capitalism didn't exist, right? So they were able to ascend to the highest levels of Maslow's hierarchy, self-actualization, so people could do what they wanted to do. So if they wanted to be explorers or doctors and nurses, they can do what they wanted to do, and things like homelessness and all these things were resolved so people can just be what they wanted to be, right? Be artists and musicians and athletes or whatever the case may be. I don't know how we move from where we're at to something fictional in that regard. You know, things like universal basic income. I honestly don't think those things would work. What I would say to your point about and there's a term called lying flat, right? People just checking out. And what I would say is for I don't think this is a new phenomenon, right? Especially if you think about the black community, right? When they talk about the unemployment levels, they never talk about black unemployment levels, right? Which are considerably higher. So when Biden or Trump or Obama or the Bushes or Clintons, when they're touting that those great unemployment rates, black unemployment still is hovering in double digits. But when white folks are their unemployment hovers in double digits, then it's a crisis, right? And so, you would say, well, we've been lying flat for decades, right? Because of the prison industrial complex. So when you get out and you can't get a job because you've got this, oh, you're a convicted felon. You've done this. You can't work here. You can't do that. And they put all these barriers so you can't be there and earn a livable wage, right? There is no equity. You might be the best person for that job, but you'll never be in that position. Then you have folks that are lying flat. And I don't think it's by choice, it's by force, right? It's how it's designed. And to bolster my point, and this is one of the things that's really important to me, is when you look at what's happening here in Kitsap County, right? You see a lot of building right now, but a lot of those buildings are storage units, right? And why are there storage units? Because folks got to have a place to put their stuff. Why? Because they're having to downsize, right? They can no longer afford the rent as it stands. They can't afford $2,400 a month, $2,200 a month, $2,000 a month, $1,800 a month, $1,600 a month when they're making 13, 15, 14, $17 an hour, or God forbid, they even have a family trying to survive off of that. And so when you look at these things here, now this is from Vice, renters in America are running out of options, right? Uh, you know, there's quite a few here that you can look at and see America's last affordable housing is under threat. So what this particular article is about is these private firms are buying manufactured homes, right? Mobile home lots, and they're increasing the price and they're pushing the people out, right? And so you own the mobile home, but you don't own the land. And so they can just keep increasing the rent, increasing the rent. Then they tell you, well, you know what? You need to go ahead and move your mobile home. Well, I can't afford to move it, and I don't have a place to move it to. So then they in the home, right? And so while we're looking at folks that are on MLK, there are so many of us, right, that are going from being able to pay our rent, or losing the home that they had. They're downsizing, then they're moving in with friends and family, then they're living in their car, and then they're going to straight homelessness. And some people skip some of those steps and go straight from, being in an apartment straight to homelessness, right? And so this is important and it impacts many of us that are in danger from one health emergency, a car accident, to not being able to maintain. And these firms that end up buying these properties in mass, they don't care. You know what I'm saying? So as soon as they get you out of there, and they are paying people to move, and they do the renovations, that allows them to increase the rent. And so, through the last year, you've had folks that have come onto the conduit and say, "Hey, my rent's jumped $200, $300. You know, I can't pay that." right? I'm getting folks, some clients have my access to my actual phone. You know, my rent jumped to $150. I don't know what I'm gonna do, right? Let me jump into the chat here. They're gonna attack our financial, they're gonna attack our way of living. Elizabeth
Yeah,
says we can start with young children and honoring the Sissiska belief that we are born self actualized and supporting them in our journey instead of shaping them towards capitalism. And another model for co op housing is mobile home parks. Um, and so, when I look at a situation, yes, when I talk right now, what's important that has been articulated to me are bathrooms on MLK, is a dumpster on MLK, is resources and services. However, I also take a 30,000-foot view, right? Because my organization helps with eviction assistance. We've been doing it since it's been, brought into the county through federal dollars, right? So I'm watching my folks and other folks that can't pay their rent because of COVID, because their job was shut down, right? And they're 10 and 15 months behind. And now that the eviction moratorium is over, right? If they can't pay the rent, here come the evictions, and this thing is going to get worse. And then you watch these outfits come in, purchase up these apartment complexes, the affordable housing complexes, and then raise the prices and then price folks out. And then you have folks that are coming over from Seattle, or you have the military that can pay and they can increase the rent. And now, where are the residents that are here supposed to go? Thoughts? I know I said a lot there.
yeah, no, I think interesting. I just saw an article yesterday in somewhere that BlackRock and a bunch of the other like major financial institutions are really gearing up and getting ready for the next downturn in prices, which is, it's coming, and it's going to force the next rung of people income level out of their homes. But there and the thing is, last time there was a downturn, I read something where they were like, "Oh, we can't buy up all these houses; people will get pissed." But now they're going to do it. Now they're going to buy. Now the goal is to own every inch of property and turn it into rental property. Is what I think. But I would really like to hear more about what Bailey is saying, because I'm trying to understand. Um, I
So
think
ask a question directly so then he can answer that question.
okay. Um, yeah, I wish there was a way to get his voice on here, but there's yeah, I'd like to just understand a little more. Um, I feel like the right voices are not at the table, and there needs to be much more inclusiveness and transparency in decision making, and who's sitting at the table. um, I don't know if that's what he was getting at, or
Well,
is
so
he still
here's
there?
the yeah. So here's a good thing. We're gonna have this opportunity to come together and have this conversation. And if people are willing, we will continue to have the conversation and try to have as many voices present as possible. uh, and that requires building trust with folks, right? I hadn't been downtown since we were doing our food on Thursdays uh, in front of the Urban Plant Shop. So when I came down to do the barbecue a couple months ago, folks were like, "Well, who the hell are you? You got cameras and microphones, and we don't trust it." And so I couldn't record, and so what I had to do was I spent hours, having conversations with folks, and then coming back down. Like I brought the STEM kids down and whatnot to reestablish myself in that space as an ally, looking for solutions, right? And that's part of the work. But that was educational for me. What I did want to put up was Elizabeth had put in and I'm probably saying it wrong, Sika Nation. And so if you guys want to check that out, you can do that here. I just typed that in and pull that up. So, there's nothing new under the sun. The answers are, I believe, in the past for sure. But just go ahead and Google that, and you can get some information. This is what came up here, and yeah, I think this is good. So thank you for sharing that, because this is a learning space, of course. which I love. So anyway, you were talking about you asked a question to Bailey, and but I wanted to get your thoughts because, like I said, I unpacked a lot there. Uh, but what are your what hit your mind as I was speaking?
I think I am absolutely 100% agreement that we need to bring more voices, and the more people that are tuned into this and trying to become part of the solution, the better. Absolutely. Um, I think that it's going to take the more, especially the more, it's just we need more voices from the community, and
Well, I mean more from
uh,
a macro level.
yeah, more
You know,
from a diversity of
what are your
viewpoints.
no, what I'm saying is
Oh,
what are
sorry.
your thoughts
Yeah.
from so I pulled it away from MLK and the folks that are on MLK right now, today, this hour, and I pulled it out more to a 30,000-foot level
Yeah.
and talked about how what I'm seeing is more and more people are going from stable housing where they can pay their mortgage or pay their rent to having to downsize, having to move in with friends and family, having to live into their vehicles, and then ultimately ending up uh, homeless, and just the
It's
direction that we're going in, right? I mean, homelessness
yeah,
is
yeah,
growing; it's not
yeah,
shrinking.
yeah,
So,
and
what are
the
your
cause, and
thoughts there?
yeah, and the cause everybody knows. I mean, everybody agrees. The cause is the lack of housing. We need more. We need more housing that people can afford. And I think we get distracted by trying to save people. I don't think it's about saving people. I think it's about empowering people and removing the boots from their necks to let them have their voice and live their own lives. And uh, so one of the things that, and now when you're talking about involving the people who are unhoused in the conversation, um, to me, that's the most important part. And how do we do that? To have somebody show up that hasn't had a shower and hasn't eaten, and maybe their shoes smell, and to sit there in a group full of people is probably not going to be a comfortable experience for some people. So I'm almost thinking that we have to
For
put
what
people up.
people?
Well, for people who are like the people that I'm thinking on the streets down here in MLK, that are literally living on the streets, to involve them in the conversation. I almost feel like we'd have to put them up at a hotel, let them, get cleaned up, get them a nice food, take care of. It's like the hierarchy of needs, right? It's like if you got to get up to the point where someone can feel comfortable talking. And
I don't know. I don't know about that. I think
okay,
that would be a thing of you ask the individual, right?
okay,
I mean that's the situation. So I would say, you don't want to put lipstick on a pig, so to speak. Where it's like, okay, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna mask it and make folks presentable, right? In a space where they can coexist and then have this conversation, right? Um, so I think it would be a question for them, right?
yeah,
So it's
yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah,
"Hey, no, I" there are probably gonna be people that say, "I wanna have you
yeah,
see
yeah,
me
yeah,
this way," right?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Because
yeah.
you're not
Okay,
seeing it. So now,
yeah,
if I go and I get a shower and I'm all good and everything is great, and I'm sitting there and you can't tell me from anyone else, and I'm just you see what I'm saying?
understand. Yeah, I do
It
see what
is
you're
what
saying.
it is, so let's
Yeah,
deal with what it is, right?
yeah,
Like, a lot of times, folks don't wanna face the real, right? It's like, "Oh, that's why it drives me crazy when people say, "We need to have these, tough conversations." But then when the tough conversation starts to happen, folks don't wanna have the tough conversations. Like, well, it's a
yeah,
tough conversation, that's the whole point. It's not gonna
yeah,
be easy, right? But you
right,
gotta keep your ass on the table so that we can continue to move forward and find some solutions, right? But
right.
if you say something that I don't like and I say something you don't like, then it's like middle finger to you, I'm out. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
But
yeah,
we're not going to solve anything that way. These
yeah,
are hard conversations. These are hard issues. To sound like Trump, there are good and bad people on both sides. That's facts.
yeah, yeah.
So don't hate the messenger, right? However you look at it, a broke clock is right twice a day, right? That's true, right? there are folks that are experiencing homelessness that are bad actors, that aren't good people, that brought it on themselves, right? And then
Yeah.
there are also people that have been a victim of circumstance.
Yep.
What are we going to do about it?
Yep.
And while it's happening, right? And to Bailey's point, while here in Kitsap County, it's predominantly white, like the black community is 3.5, I heard 5% of Kitsap County. Nationwide, black people experience the most homelessness in this damn country. You see what I'm saying? So again, I'm looking at it from a macro level. So yeah, the people that I'm directing my efforts and my services to, right, are going to impact the white community because that's where I'm at. That's my proximity. My building is a block and a half from here, right? This is who I serve. But nationwide, this is going to impact my black community because disproportionately, they are more unhoused than any other demographic. So the work that I do here hopefully will translate to the rest of my folks nationwide. And that's what I mean by the macro level of it, right?
Okay.
So, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah.
Sorry,
Yeah.
got a little. It was
No,
Sunday.
no, no. That was good. That's good. That's good. Yeah. Difficult conversations that we have to have. Yes. Um,
And that's what makes it hard, right? Because like I said before, both things can be true at the same time.
yeah.
But that doesn't mean that we have inaction.
Right.
We have to have some type of action to move forward and solve the issues. But again, it's much. MLK is the tipping point, the catalyst, but it's so much bigger than that,
It's the
right?
canary in
Uh,
the coal mine. Can we use that analogy?
Yeah, it could be canary in the coal mine. Now, what's interesting, and I'll be sharing this data out here in a little bit. One of the people that was present was the United Way executive director, and I'm going to be. Please don't quote me on this because this number may not be right. But one of the things that he mentioned to me was something about 90% of black kids in Kitsap County, and it was some negative demographic, right? 90% and a negative demographic. And he's like, how do we help these kids? So I'm
Hmm.
supposed to send him an email. He's going to send me all the data. Like I said, I will be bringing that to you. And again, if it's 90%, and yes, we may not see black children downtown in Salvation Army, but where are they at? Right? Where are they at?
Yep. The numbers don't lie in Kitsap County. I mean, if you look at arrest statistics, if you look at graduation rates,
Mm,
it's negative for black population in Kitsap County and Bremerton for
that's what we
every
should do
measure.
next week. That's what we
What's
should
that?
do next Sunday. Because we were talking about it was a light day. We should have went over your police data.
Ah, oh, I need
You
to
know?
update it. I just got a new set of round of. I'll put that on my list. And the other thing is, I love the idea of putting together a group to talk about MLK. I think that there is suffering down there that we can alleviate, and we do have the power as a community to right that situation mostly. But the bigger issue of housing, I think that also needs a focus group. How do we really get some affordable housing, some real bulk of of affordable housing? And so, um, I would like to start hopefully put together a group that really dives into that. Like, how do we bring some co-op housing to Bremerton? How do we bring some land trusts? I hear the Bainbridge Land Trust would love to extend to Bremerton. Um, so that's a
Well,
whole nother different conversation that needs to get really in depth, and maybe look at solutions for the people who are not homeless yet but are going to be homeless if
but
we
I
don't
think
do
what's
something.
important, Jeff, is what's a housing trust?
Ah, yeah, and that's where things get really super complicated and hard to explain. But a housing trust essentially means that the land belongs to the community, and there are different models. Like you buy the house, but you're restricted on how much you can sell it for in the end. So you don't get to reap these huge, you know, uh, upticks in the value of land. And what it does is it just takes the land prices out of it. And really, land prices are what's driving most of the high rents and high housing costs right now, because people are investing in land instead of gold now, so that you just buy it and sit on it. That's the whole, it's safe, it's never going to go down. And so now that's the safe investment. And so everybody's pouring their money into buying, like, through stocks. So they'll buy, half of Washington through stocks, and that belong to millions of people all over the world. Um, and so anyway, so the land trust takes that part out of it and says that you're not going to profit on the profit is going to remain with the community, which is the way it should be in my mind.
So Jeff,
And yes.
Jeff. So, and this is what I think is important, right? So when I hear folks, throw out a term or a solution, right? It the part of equity, and I wish I had your slide so I can pull it back up, is everyone understanding. So if someone says we should do housing trust, it's like, well, what the hell is a housing trust?
Yeah, yeah,
What are the pros and cons of that? Why is it a good thing? But all I'm hearing, we should just do a housing trust, right?
right, right.
That's why we have a real an opportunity to help to explain what those things are, so it's so people can make the decision together, right? It's like, well, oh, housing trust is so much
Right.
better than what we're doing now, right? And based on how you explained it, that sounds like a good thing. But I think it's
But there's
important
probably
for everyone.
yeah,
But yeah, but I think it's important for everyone to know what the hell that is, right? What is a housing trust? How does it work?
yeah,
Why isn't it done more?
right.
How does it benefit? For me, I don't know how feasible this is, but I like, parts of the Habitat for Humanity piece. I would love to see, like maybe the housing authority or the county or whatever take some money and say, hey, we're going to go ahead and we're going to buy a property, and we're going to have kind of how Habitat does, where a bunch of people come in and help build the house for a family and then they move into it, right? But instead of just being a one-off where that family kind of builds their home and then they're set and they're done, that community just keeps going, right? And then they build the next one and they build the next one, right? And not only are you teaching skills so that people can do minor repairs and upkeep on their own property, right? So you're making them uncertified electricians and plumbers and things like that, so they don't have to hire someone at 80 or $90 an hour, but you're also teaching them the skills. And you say, you know what? The people that are part of this program is going to be here. We're not going to do any contract bids for people that are outside of Kitsap County, and we're going to build our own labor force, right? And we're going to give them the vocational skills in that way, make them the builders, the carpenters, and everything else, right? I think that would be a powerful way to go. But what you see oftentimes is, all right, so you got an outside developer that buys this property, and then they bring a crew from out of state somewhere. They come in, they do the work, and they're gone. And there goes the money too, right? And so the folks that are here in Kitsap County, born and raised, place bound, whatever the case may be, right? They don't get any of that benefit or that experience. And if we look nationwide, right, we are consumers as a country, right? We're 5%, 8 billion people on this planet. We're 400 million. We're 5% of the global population, but we're the consumers of like what 25% of the resources, right? We're not building anything. We need to get back to building
Mhm,
our own, you know what I'm saying? It's like
mhm,
fix your own house before you throw stones somewhere else, right? We've got
mhm.
an infrastructure, we got bridge issues, we need fiber optic cable, we have housing issues. So I was like, you know what? We're gonna build a program. We're gonna work with the school system, the education system. We're gonna work with the labor department. We're gonna work with the housing department, and we're gonna train and our own people. They will build property, right? You would probably have businesses that would start from that. So Jeff wants to have a roofing company, right? Uh, Bailey's going to be an electrician outfit, right? Elizabeth is going to be a plumbing outfit, and we build that ecosystem there, right? Charity starts at home. I think there's some other things that we can do, but those are ideas that have to be explained and fed it out.
Yeah.
Let's try it. Let's see what happens.
Yeah, so I would love to have September be a really deep dive into that. So that's why I'm gathering some stuff, and hopefully we can plan something out for September to really dive into all those conversations. And this is a personal note for me. I'm getting to the age where I'm gonna have a fixed income. I know how much I'm going to make for the rest of my life, and so I want a fixed rent to go with my fixed income. you know that I'm not going to be having to worry at 80 years old that oh my god, I'm priced out of a place to live. And I think we can create that here in Bremerton. I think that is possible. And some cities even have a department that does nothing but work out all those issues. How do we build affordable housing? And so there's a actual department in the city government that's their specialty. How do we find land and convert it to affordable housing? Um, but that is a huge issue that I feel like there's solutions out there. We just need to try them. It's just getting people out of the feeling that, we are where we are and nothing can be done, which I think I totally disagree with that. I think we choose our own destinies. um,
You brought up a really fantastic point. Let me give you a horn for that. The point that you brought up is this: we are all going to get to a point where we can no longer physically work, right? And SSI, if you're privileged enough to be in a position where you have a retirement, they're saying that what Social Security is going to be empty here, and not too long from now, right? What the next 20 years, depending on what stats you're looking at. So, how are people supposed to survive if your fixed income is $800? That's coming for all of us, right? And that's what I was saying before, right? We're one accident, we're one medical situation, um, away from finding ourselves in this situation. So what do we do? I don't have, I'm not wealthy where I can put myself into a home, a nursing home, right, and have 24-hour care around the clock. I've talked with a lot of folks that have special needs children as adults, and they are the primary caregiver, but they're getting up in age themselves. So, what do they do if they're gone? What happens to their children? And I know a lot of, when I say a lot, I'm talking about more than 10, you know, that are here in this county that are in that scenario, right? They're up in years, 50 plus, that have either teen or adult special needs children that are going to need care, right? Beyond when they're gone. And there's no resources or options for them.
right, and that's tied into housing too, in that caregiver how do you get caregivers if they can't afford to live here and they're not getting paid enough? And so maybe we could tie that in with housing too, and that certain caregivers get a break on their teachers get a break on their income, on their rents. I don't know. I just think there are solutions here that we can explore. But,
All right. I missed that. I'm sorry, Bailey. I missed the chat there. He said, I'm all
oh,
ears. I've been screaming from the mountaintops. Why don't we do this?
yes.
Um, Bailey, because I do want you there at that September meeting. And I also need to talk to you about the Islander Festival,
Mm,
which again is coming up. So hopefully you guys will come. Pendergrass Park,
I'm so looking forward to that. Yes.
September 3rd. That's going to be an excellent time. Do make sure you come. Uh, but if you're up for it, Bailey, I love maybe for the three of us to sit and just chat and talk, because I think that would be really
I would love
powerful, and
that.
then game up, because the September conversation for the community breakfast, what I'm envisioning is a little bit of this, right? Is we don't have time for folks to come and say, I'm R1, I'm the executive director of G2, I'm Kirsten Jewell, and I'm the county, I'm Mayor Wheeler. We don't have time for that. What I would like to do instead is to say, hey, I'm the mayor. This is what we've tried, and this is what doesn't hasn't worked, right? I'm the county. We've done porta potties. This why this didn't work. We did dumpsters. This didn't work. I'm experiencing homelessness. This is my experience. And, you guys tried this or we tried to do that. We don't have anywhere to go. There's no bus service on Sunday, whatever it is, right? And then what I would like to do is break us into working groups, right? And then start to try to tackle those things, right? Yeah, these are big things, and it's not gonna be resolved in one space, but we've never ever all been in the space together, right? And so it just becomes this thing
Mm.
where I'm presenting who I am, and it's the first hour of everyone just saying who the hell they are. We ain't got time for that. We pretty much know who we are. What has been tried and what doesn't work? Where have we had some wins and some places that we can build synergy from, where we can scaffold and expand? Let's get into these small work groups, work on that, bring that back, and then see if some subgroups can be built from that to continue to work on those things. So maybe it's, the hygiene and kits and things like that. Maybe it's, Peninsula Healthcare, as they open up their building and the permitting. When is that going to open? When is Foundation for Homeless and Poverty Management going to open? What's the stopgap until these things come online? And how are they going to provide the services and answer the issues that exist? Winter is coming, right? Game of Thrones is coming back, but winter is coming. And, it's like, well, we kind of look at winter being the worst for folks that are unhoused. But 95 degrees is miserable. So what do we do? And again, from a macro look at this, we're all going to continue to age. We're so sick as a nation, right? The things that um, we ingest, right? Whatever the case may be, we're coming up with new things. When I was a kid, I didn't know about like gluten issues and things like when I was a kid. For me, those things didn't exist. Those things weren't talked about. We just ate everything. Everything was good. But now we have all these issues, right? He said, "Let's have lunch today on me." What time would that work for you, Jeff?
I'm always up for free lunch,
All right. How
especially with
about
Bailey.
All right, I gotta pick up Layla. So how about I'm gonna go and pick up Layla. I'm gonna stop because we're gonna go to Cups, Pups, and Cones,
Oh,
and because
cool.
there's a caramel latte that got my name on it. So me and Layla will get a latte, and then we'll head down to you. So what? How about we do 3:30? Will that work, Bailey? Will that work for you, Jeff?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. And see, you know what? It's to me, yes, this is hard, but there's some parts that are damn easy. It's like, oh, we should get together. Hey, come down. Lunch is on me. It can be that easy. That's what's so crazy. Oh, let's meet
Oh,
at Cups and Pups. Okay, 3 p.m. Well, we
okay.
can meet earlier then because we're gonna go straight there. So if you're cool with it, let's meet there at 1. Will that work, Bailey?
Works for me. Shorter walk for me too. And I'll have a hot dog. Nice.
Yeah, and they close at 3. So yeah, if we can meet at 1, that'd be perfect. Perfect. Bam.
Excellent. Okay, cool. And Liz, come
Oh,
on down too. You're within walking distance, Liz.
so, you know, I think this was an awesome episode. Jeff was worried. He's like, man, it's light. Uh,
Apparently not. Yeah.
there's always something to talk about. I was trying to find it. I really wanted to preview the data that you got on the disparaging treatment of Black people here in this county by the police. I just wanted to show just some of the numbers without the context. But Jeff is definitely bringing his resources and his knowledge, skills, and abilities to bear. Again, like I said, I appreciate you going over the budget and just preparing all the documentation. That stuff takes a lot of time to do. And
But
so, hey,
who doesn't like pouring through numbers? Come on.
there's a lot of people that don't like
There's a
poetry.
lot of people.
Well, you know what you were saying earlier is it seems like sometimes they present the numbers in a way where it's designed for people not to know what the hell is going on. It's like, all right, I need a translator to tell me what's in this big
Yeah.
thick
Well, I
binder
don't
of
know if that's
numbers.
honestly. I don't know if that's. I don't think that's intentional. I think that
No, I'm
we
not
just have
saying it
really
is.
bad
I'm just
skills.
saying it.
Oh yeah, 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 yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
you know,
Okay.
if I wasn't trained in that, I don't know what I'm
Right.
looking at, right? My
Right.
household,
Right.
I'm trying to manage $20,000 a year or $30,000 a year, 45,000, not 200 million. You know, what the hell,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And then trying to prioritize all these things. So, yeah, no,
Well,
I think this was great.
okay.
Uh,
Good.
I
Well,
will give you the final word, sir.
no, just thank you for keeping the conversation going. I think that's the important part. Thank you. Yeah.
All right. Well, shout out to Cups, Pups, and Cones. Like I said, there's a butterscotch latte with my name on it. I don't know what Layla's gonna get, but we love sweets and lattes, so we're gonna have a good time. For Jeff Campbell, I am Marwan Cameron. This is the Civic Second. We will see you next Sunday, Lord willing.